G'day everybody, I'm Scott Poynton and today I'm with Heloise Buckland. How are you going, Heloise?
I'm very good, thank you, Scott.
Yeah, and Heloise is founder and CEO of a fascinating company called Husk. Tell us first about yourself, Heloise. What's your background?
Well, thank you, Scott. My background is around 20 years working in the sustainability and social innovation field, mostly in Latin America, also in Asia and Europe. And, Scott, I've been working for many years on education for sustainability, knowing that that's key to unlocking change. But just a couple of years ago, I met the co-founder of Husk and decided to do something a bit quicker with my time left on this planet. And I really wanted to scale up. So I now make biochar.
Biochar. So what's biochar?
So biochar is effectively carbonized biomass. So it's turning any kind of biomass into a charcoal substance and putting it in the soil. We put biochar in the soil to improve soil fertility, but also to sequester carbon. So it's a fascinating age-old practice that actually dates about 3,000 years ago. Farmers have been carbonizing their agricultural waste and putting it back in the soil to make the soil soft to help their crops grow better.
So it's organic matter, basically, going into the soil, which means it's got nutrients, full of nutrients, but it also holds water. This is great for degraded soils, right? And farmers around the world who are driving fertilisers and all sorts of things into their soils to try and get yields, the biochar is a great way of helping them avoid using those fertilisers, but really improving soil quality. We'll come back to the carbon capture in a minute, but look, just tell us about Husk first. Tell us about Husk and your project in Cambodia. It's really fascinating.
Great. Okay, so Husk is a social enterprise, and we started, myself and Carol Rius, co-founder, the company 2 years ago. We registered in Spain because I've been living in Barcelona for the last 15 years.
Not a bad place to live.
Not a bad place to live. Lots of innovation happening there too. So we set up the company 2 years ago with the idea of doing something to support smallholder farmers. Because we feel that the smallholder farmers on the planet are the ones who, A, are struggling the most with climate change. They're the hardest hit. But B, they're also producing the majority of the world's food. So if we don't look after the farmers, we're not going to have anything left to eat, especially as we're an increasing population. Something
like 80%, I think you said, of all the food produced in the world is by these smallholder farmers, just with little plots.
That's right. Average plot of 2 hectares. In Asia alone, 80% of the food is produced by these smallholder farmers. And they're the ones that really struggle with the effects of climate change, with soil degradation. And as you know, Scott, 1/3 of the world's soils are now degraded.
Right.
That depletion usually through over-farming, through excessive use of chemical inputs, and other practices that are really kind of degrading the carbon matter in the soil and the organic matter generally.
Yeah. So how do you make biochar?
So we make biochar by converting rice husk into biochar using pyrolysis technology. So biochar is traditionally made with wood, and that happens in several parts of the world. But when Carol and I discovered rice husk, we were fascinated by the scale of the opportunity to turn it into biochar, because 150 million tons of rice husk are produced every year.
Rice husk alone?
Of rice husk alone, because rice is the 3rd largest crop by volume in the world, and 20% of that harvest is the husk.
Gotcha. Sits around the rice grain.
Exactly. So it sits around the rice grain. Well, it actually is separated at the rice mill. Mm-hmm. So this is the problem. This 150 million tons of rice husk generally is burnt at high temperatures as a fuel to dry paddy rice, causing some nasty emissions, crystalline silica and so on, or it's just left to degrade, which also causes carbon dioxide emissions. But traditionally, farmers would turn this rice husk into biochar by putting it into a little pile, sticking a metal tube in the top, and effectively decomposing the biochar in an oxygen-starved environment. So they would use an ancient form of pyrolysis. So what we've done is taken this ancient technique and scaled it up with some technology inside a rice mill. So we've installed a pyrolysis unit inside a rice mill to scale up this ancestral agricultural practice.
Right, so the technology itself is not new, but putting it in, connecting it to a rice mill and making it part of the process is where you guys have brought in this innovation.
That's right, yeah. So we've pioneered a circular economy model for the rice sector by integrating the pyrolysis unit inside the rice mill where the husk accumulates, turning that rice husk into biochar, and then distributing it back to the rice farmers on one side and to horticulture producers on the other. Because rice farmers in developing countries have very poor yields. They're getting only 3 tons a hectare compared to Australia, where you're from, that's around 9 tons a hectare, I believe. So part of the reason they're getting these low yields is due to the poor quality of the soil. So we turn the rice husk into biochar at the rice mill and then distribute the biochar products back to the rice farmers so they can increase their yields. And actually, this is useful for the rice mill because the rice milling capacity is also struggling as they're getting broken rice. And with putting biochar back into the soil, you get an increase in yield, but an increase in the quality of rice. So it's good for the rice millers, good for the farmers, and we're hoping good for us as a social enterprise.
It sounds good to me. So you've been going a couple of years now, is that right? Yeah. So just proof of concept. You've passed the proof of concept phase, and what have been the impacts for the farmers? I mean, well, let's come back to the carbon in a minute. I'm absolutely fascinated by that, but I'm also interested to learn what have been the impacts for the farmers as they've put the biochar on their fields. What are they seeing? Are they seeing increased yields of their rice, of their vegetables, and all these sort of things? Tell us that story.
I'll first just explain a little bit more about biochar. So it basically acts like a sponge. Biochar acts like a sponge in the soil. It's very highly porous. So we've got 200 meters squared of surface area for every gram of our biochar. And that surface area is what gives it this sponge-like quality. So that means the biochar can hold water. So that's great for dry periods. It can also hold nutrients. So this means the farmer can use less chemical fertilizers and also has less runoff into the streams and the water sources. And the third thing that the biochar can host is microorganisms. So biochar sometimes is described as a hotel for microorganisms because this is where all the little great beasties who need to take the nutrients to the roots can live and thrive. So we've got better water retention, better nutrient retention, and better microbial activity. And all this has resulted in increased yields. So we've done, to answer your question, around 14 trials in different parts of Cambodia, and we've seen yield increases of up to 100% just in the first cycle of using the biochar. So we've done trials on rice, on vegetables, on pepper, and on fruit, and we're seeing yield increases across the board, varying between 10 and 100% yield increases in the first cycle. Obviously, there's huge factors in terms of what your starting point is, the soil conditions, the farmer's practice, but the general message is biochar works. And so what we did a year ago when we started making biochar in Cambodia, we set ourselves out to prove a concept. 3 questions. Can we make biochar? Can we sell biochar? And does it work? So can we make biochar? Yes, we made 82 tons of biochar last year. Can we sell biochar? Yes, we sold 82 tons of biochar last year. And we've got orders for this year that are already more than what we can produce currently. And does it work? Yes, we've got yield increases between 10 and 100%. And the farmers are repeat buying the biochar because they know it works. And the reason they know it works is because something that they've been doing for centuries. They just don't have access to their rice husk anymore. So we're effectively, with some technology and scale, giving back the farmers access to something that they've already had. So they don't have to rely on buying chemical inputs. It's
fantastic. And I've seen some of your photos, and I must say, I mean, I didn't see without biochar, but the plants look pretty healthy and the farmers look pretty happy. And you made I'll put some text in the blog that I'll write to accompany this of your website, and so people can see the videos that you've made. So look, this project's really getting up and running. What caught my attention initially when I learnt about it was, I was really rapt to see that this was happening for these small farmers because, this is a concern of mine, but it was really on the carbon side. And because I'm fascinated in projects that can help take carbon out of the atmosphere. And if we've got this huge pile, 150 million tonnes of rice husk sitting around in piles all around the world, either rotting away or being burnt, and you're getting it back into the soil. So it really does close that loop and bring that circular economy back into the equation. So just tell us a little bit about the carbon story of biochar.
Sure. So as you know, the rice plant, like any plant, will be absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And that carbon in the plant, with business as usual, will be released back into the atmosphere if it's burnt or if it degrades. So what we're doing is taking that carbon from the plant and fixing it into the soil through a technology called pyrolysis. So the carbon in our biochar stays in the soil for 100 years. And the IPCC, who've recently recognized biochar as one of the scalable, viable carbon capture solutions as we go forward, reckons that the biochar will stay in the soil for 100 years and 80% of that carbon will remain for that 100 years.
Some of it will be lost just through natural processes and stuff like that, but 80%.
Exactly. So what we're doing is we're taking the carbon from the rice husk and we're fixing it into the soil where it will remain for 100 years. And we've had our biochar tested with the EBC labs in Switzerland, and we have 48% carbon in our biochar. And that means that we are offsetting 1.6 tons.
There's that word again. It's okay. Sequestering. We stay away from the O word, ladies and gentlemen. It's a horror. Sequestering 1.6 tons of carbon, right?
So that's right. We're sequestering 1.6 tons of carbon for every ton of biochar we use. That, in other words, we're avoiding 1.6 tons of CO2 going up into the atmosphere and contributing to climate change. And we're fixing the carbon in the soil where it stays for 100 years. So that's our carbon story.
Yeah. With all those benefits to the farmers while you're doing it.
Exactly.
I think it's a fantastic story, and so what I'm interested in is how do we help you take this to scale, and that's why we're doing this podcast, so we can get some word out there about Husk and your project in Cambodia, and really for me it's now to say, look, what's your vision for the future? Where, you've had these 2 years, I think you mentioned 80 tons of biochar you've produced last year. How many farmers was that? How many households? About 50, I think it was, wasn't it? So you've seen these benefits. You know the process works. What's your vision for this? Where are you taking it?
Okay, so by 2025, we would like to have produced 10,000 tons of biochar. So that would equate to 16,000 tons of carbon sequestered into the soil and 50,000 farmers supported. That's just in the next 5 years. But actually, I've got a longer term vision, and our team are working towards a 15-year vision where we can support 100,000 farmers and we can sequester 75,000 tons of CO2. So that's what really we're aiming for. And we'd really like to find those pioneering companies and individuals that also have a long-term vision of sequestering carbon at scale, to the scale that really society needs today. And the nice thing about biochar is this is not an R&D project. This is not a future plan. This is not a university lab. This is a sustainable, shovel-ready solution that we're doing today in Cambodia and hoping to scale to 10 other units across the world. Yeah,
I mean, this is, as you've said, this is ancient technology. It's been around for thousands of years. You've put a machine in a rice mill, so it's ability to take it to scale. So this is terrific. And shovel ready, it's ready to go. The benefits are coming to the farmers today. It's really just about now taking this to scale.
That's exactly right. So what we're doing now is looking for the financial resources to install a larger production unit in Cambodia. So we're looking at the moment we produce 150 tons of biochar per year, and we're looking for the next step to produce 1,000 tons of biochar per year. We've got a couple of technology companies, we've got rice mills interested, we've got a market proven, and we're now sourcing the financial resources to do that. Once we have this first up and running, viable, scalable unit in Cambodia, we're ready to scale to at least 3 global regions. And, this can really be planted in any country that has rice, soil degradation, and smallholder farmers. And I'm sure, Scott, that's about half of the planet.
There's a few countries like that.
This is highly scalable, yes. And we are really open and excited to meet other people that want to join us on this journey.
Fantastic. Well, I'm very excited about it too. And my interest is, really through this whole approach of carbon zero that I wrote and spoke about a couple of years ago, and trying to inspire companies to look at how they can be more responsible and have a credible program on carbon. And, the reason I don't like using the offset word is because I just don't think it's credible. And what I'm looking to do is inspire companies to reduce their own emissions, invest in projects to reduce emissions elsewhere, but at the same time, third action step is to invest in projects like yours that takes carbon out of the atmosphere and puts it back in the soil or perhaps in forests. So looking to develop a whole portfolio of projects that companies can invest in. And the good news, having written about this back in 2016 and started my own little project on this to take my own lifetime emissions out of the atmosphere in 2018, is that in January this year, January 2020, Microsoft well, I don't know, I think they are the biggest company in the world, but they're pretty big if they're not the biggest, made this terrific commitment that by 2030 they'd be carbon negative, and by 2050 they will have taken all of their emissions that they've ever put into the atmosphere since their inception in 1975 out of the atmosphere. And I think this would be a great project to put in front of Microsoft, or to inspire other companies to follow their lead. So, Heloise, we're hoping that this project can really, well, it's up and running already, but let's put some legs on it. Let's pump up its tyres and get it out there. I think the carbon benefits are enormous, but what really does excite me is these co-benefits, as I call them, of really supporting these farmers to be more resilient in the face of hotter temperatures, dwindling rainfall, degraded soils. Let's help these farmers find a different path, and I think that's what you're doing, and it really is an exciting social enterprise. So congratulations on where you've come from and what you've done so far, and great hopes for the future.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Scott.
Let's see how we go.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Heloise.
Bye-bye.